thousands of people have mysteriously vanished in America's wilderness. Join us as we dive into the deep end of the unexplainable and try to piece together what happened. You are listening to Locations Unknown.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Locations Unknown. I'm your co-host, Joe Irado, and with me, as always, is a guy who would never ban TikTok, Mike Vandebogart.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you once again to all of the amazing listeners for tuning in. We've got a really fun episode here, so I won't spend too much time talking here in the front end, but I just want to give some Patreon shout-outs to new subscribers. So thank you to Amy Mitchell, Evan Wilson, Julia Reagan, Amy Hoffman, Leanne Cole, Nikki Hogue, Paige Johnson, and Brooke.
Oh, you better get it right.
Frizzle. So,
like Miss Frizzle from Magic School Bus?
Sure.
Okay, so, they're probably related.
Thank you so much for supporting the show. As you can see, we're always adding new equipment. Your contributions directly go into everything in the studio. We've got new cameras here, and we got big plans for the rest of this year. And if you do want to help support the show, you can always find us on Patreon, YouTube memberships. You can buy stuff from our stores on our website and Facebook.
Or just send us money.
We have a P.O. box, always willing to accept just straight up cash. If you don't want to give us, monetary support, you can always just spread the word about the show. That helps us as well. So without that, Joe, you got any other updates on your end?
No, this is a highly anticipated episode. As some of you know, we just did a collaboration with National Park After Dark, and part of that deal was they were going to come onto our show. So without further ado, we're going to invite on Danielle and Cassie from National Park After Dark. Welcome, you guys.
Hey, guys.
Oh, hey, thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks for coming on. So we're excited for this. On your show, we did a lot of talking about how we got started, and we focus on the case. And a lot of people commented that they really wanted a behind the scenes or a studio show where we just talk about stuff, which is weird to us because this is what we do all the time. But I felt like this would be a perfect time for you guys to talk about how you got your start and how you started your show. So a little bit about yourselves and how you got started.
Sure, we can definitely dive into that story. I guess just starting off the bat is Danielle and I know each other because we used to work as vet techs together. And that's how our friendship formed originally. And we're both from Southern New Hampshire, which we used to recreate in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. So that's how we started kind of our outdoor friends of our whole vet tech office, I would say. Like between everyone, we were always like, okay, where do we want to hike? What do we want to do? And then I would say Danielle in particular, like brought to the forefront her morbid curiosities. And I was like, oh, hey, I like that. So eventually we started talking about a lot of the things that go wrong in the outdoors, and we brought them into our adventures. I mean, the White Mountains were like a 2-hour drive from us. So I can remember days where we would just read over affidavits and cases online for the 2-hour drive that it would take us to actually get to these locations. And then eventually Danielle and I both moved. I moved to Vermont. She moved out to Washington. And that's when the podcast started to form, which Danielle, if you want to tell that part, because you're the one who messaged me about the idea originally.
Yeah. So like Cassie kind of alluded to, I've always had some sense of morbid curiosity. Just growing up, it's just always been kind of my thing. And it's taken different forms and shapes over the years, but kind of like a pivotal moment of it as far as specifically in the outdoors was when I was on a family vacation, as a lot of Americans do, to Yellowstone. And I was with my sister, my parents, and my grandparents. And we stopped at the visitor center one of the very first days. And I went immediately over to the book section because I'm a huge bookworm. And I picked up the book by Lee H. Whittlesey called Death in Yellowstone. And I spent the rest of our vacation cruising through that book, but it just made my experience so much richer because I was going to these locations where so many of these stories had taken place, you know, since records were being kept. And I would share that with my family, which I don't know if they really took to that super well. Like, oh, someone got mauled by a grizzly here, or somebody plummeted their car off this ledge. You know, they're like, okay, can you?
They're trying to enjoy the beauty of the park, and you're just like, here's all the people that died where we are right now.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, keep it down around like your grandparents, you know. So, so that's kind of where it took form as far as the outdoors, kind of how that got braided together. And then, like Cassie said, when we would be together, we kind of did a lot of that, especially centered in the White Mountains. But when that move occurred, you know, we were in different parts of the country. And I had actually, instead of just packing up a U-Haul and having my stuff shipped to Washington, my partner and I at the time, we decided to take my little tow behind camper, like barely big enough for a bed. You can't even stand fully up in it. Like, it's a tiny little camper. And we decided to go from New England throughout the whole US the long way and go through and just stay in national parks and BLM land and national forests and things like that. And just made it like an adventure out of the move. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I would be taking note of the places we were at and Googling, you know, if anything happened there. And, you know, Ian, God bless him, he was like, Danielle, like, I'd rather not know. Can you tell me after? You know, that after we leave would be cool. But so anyway, long story short, when I pulled into Washington, I'll always remember I think it was Halloween or the day before Halloween when I texted Cassie and I said, hey, like, I have this idea. Why don't we kind of take what we've already been discussing and put it into a podcast format? And she was on board right away. That's not to say we had any idea what we were doing. We did not. Like Cassie said, we were veterinary technicians. We had been for years. That was our bread and butter. We had no idea. We literally went to, I mean, at least speaking for myself, I went to Target and bought just like a microphone and plugged it directly into my laptop and just started talking. And we're like, great, this works. Yep. No editing, no sort of any sort of equipment. That obviously came later and it's still evolving. Obviously, we are self-taught, and I think a lot of podcasters can relate to that. So it's been a journey. And at first, you know, we were very surprised that we had any listeners, and then it just kind of took off from there. Yeah.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah. That's kind of, the exact same way we started.
Our first episode sounds like we're in a tin can.
Yeah. We had
so
like
Yeti
so microphones on. Yeah. And my laptop sounded like a jet engine taking off. It was like overheating and that's probably a very familiar, anyone that podcasts is probably has a very, you know, familiar origin story.
Absolutely.
Right.
But you guys stuck with it though. I think that's the key is you stuck with it. You built a huge following. I mean, you guys are a very popular show. It's awesome. That's what we always joke that we didn't think you would do a collaboration with us because we're not a big enough show for you guys.
God, no.
You'll hear in some voicemails we have for you later. Some people are being nice. So it's like, I think you guys would be great. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice.
So how long have you been doing your show for?
It began in January of 2021.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So just over 3 years.
Yeah. So we had thought about it, you know, when I first sent her that text, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that would be cool. And then we actually did it. It's kind of like, have you seen those memes where it's like when the trip actually makes it out of the group chat and everyone's just kind of looking at each other like, wow, we're here.
Yes.
It was kind of like that. It was kind of like that. And, you know, we were still working full time. Like we were working full time. Vet tech work is no joke. You know, you have 10 to 12 hour shifts. You're essentially obviously a nurse for animals, and our work schedules reflected that. And so we would be working 10 to 12 hour shifts and then come home, have, shove some food in our face, and then research and record and try and figure out how to edit. And it was just
that was an adventure.
It was a journey. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get comfortable listening to yourself talk? That was hard for me.
Listen back.
Oh, really?
I never listened back. No. After obviously we had to edit for quite a while, and it was awful. It was just kind of like, I was like, God, do I sound like that to the whole world? And then once the only team member that we have is our editor, and we love her very much. Her name is Lauren, and she has been the best thing that's ever happened to us.
Did you have Lauren from the beginning?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. God, no.
I was gonna say, wow, that'd be awesome.
No, I remember when we first started editing, and specifically when I would edit, because she would edit her episodes, I would edit my episodes, and I would go through and I would delete every breathing noise that there was. It would be an hour episode, and it would take me 8 hours to edit it, and it sounded horrible by the time it was done. It was just like, it didn't flow well. I mean, I didn't know how to edit very well, so we sounded like we were underwater. When we recorded, I was in a closet. It was just, it was rough.
I think about a lot of those early episodes, because this went on for, I don't know how it's been with you guys. You guys look like you got the setup. Like right now, you got it.
It's evolved. You would see earlier pictures. It's in my office in my house, and it's like the table we're at is my wife's childhood kitchen table that I've spray painted and drilled holes through. And we've kind of vowed to be like, hey, maybe we just always keep the table, but we just slowly get more and more equipment, and it's kind of fake it till you make it.
Yeah. We would spend a ton of time, tinkering with the audio and everything. And I think we eventually learned that you just got to buy better mics.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to.
Yeah. Well, because we think, at least I reflect back on a lot of our earlier episodes, because I would say, I don't know when Lauren came onto the scene, but it wasn't, like we said,
it's like,
it was a very
episode 40 or 60 or we were in it.
And like a lot of those early episodes, I think back, I'm like, I know our audio scared away a good amount of people, and maybe they didn't listen to the stories because it sounded so bad. But it's like, should we retell some of those stories? Because they're really good. But yeah, I think it's kind of just in the past. It is what it is. It's part of the evolution. And
I've thought about that actually. The first 10 episodes, it'd be kind of fun to just redo them.
Yeah.
Like now.
There is very few people who will go back and back catalog.
Yeah.
And when they do, they let us know. They're like, I've been binging. You guys have gotten way better.
I think sometimes they're sarcastic about it too. We had someone say they listen 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're not. Well, I hope they're not. That'd be bad. So I guess what we skipped is, what does your show cover? Like, we're very specific. We obviously go off a little bit and do some paranormal stuff, but we're mostly people who go missing unexplained. So you guys, are you only national parks? Tell the audience kind of, for the people who you didn't bring to our show that are listening to this, what your show's about.
Yeah, so it's called National Park After Dark, and we do try to stay with national park stories. However, sometimes we stray. But national park sites are so different than just national parks. It's not just these huge parks that you think of when you think of Yosemite or the Grand Canyon. There are so many national park sites as well, national historic sites, national monuments, things like that we definitely include in our content. And the fun thing about national parks is there are so many things that have happened there. And there are so many stories depending on where you are. And with the National Historic Parks, we find that there's a lot of historical, very interesting stories that have happened over the years. And then we also find, of course, in national parks, there's rescue stories, there's survival stories, there's tragic accidents, there's weather, really bad weather that occurs. And then there's also a true crime aspect, so we kind of dabble in every single genre that we can find. If it happens in a national park and it's interesting, we'll talk about it.
It's fair game. Yeah, it's fair game. So yeah, like Cassie was saying, there's, when people think of national parks, you think of the 63 big crown jewels, but there's well over 400 national park managed sites throughout the country. And we didn't say we're US based. There are national parks around the world. So at first, like, I think we had a fleeting thought maybe 6 months into the show of like, oh shit, like this is kind of going well. And what if we run out of things? Like what we didn't even think of that.
Oh, we've definitely been there.
Yeah. But then like, you know, as you go through the process of researching different things, like sometimes you're researching a story, which I'm sure you guys can attest to. You're researching one story or subject, and there's a tiny footnote within your research that opens the doors to a whole nother story you wouldn't have never come across. So it's just kind of like rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And sometimes we'll go out searching like, I want a story in the Badlands. So let's find one. But very rarely does it happen like that. It's more organic.
That's good.
Yeah. And I mean, we've covered story. I mean, you run out of national parks, then you got your national forests. And then you've got your state parks. We've covered stories in state parks.
And then just areas with trees.
Then just areas with trees.
Literally, it's outside.
Yeah. And we've covered stories in Scotland, in South America, Australia. So, I mean, you're right. I thought for a little while, it's like, we're going to run out of stuff to cover. And then you're just like, wow. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's never ending.
And there's always new stories, sadly.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's always a new case. And I don't know if you found this with your fans. A lot of our stories in maybe the last 2 years have been listener recommended now. We don't even have to go out and find the story. We're getting emails from people listening like, you should look into this case. And cases I've never even heard of before until someone emails them to us. And they're really interesting.
Absolutely. I think the last maybe 3 I've covered are all fan recommendations. And we have a whole list that we, you know, just backlogs of things that either we're interested in or have been fan suggestions, or during our own travels when we are in parks ourselves and see something on an information board, we'll take a picture of it, make a note of it, and it goes on the list. So, yeah.
I have a whole notes section in my phone that is like 40 recommendations from listeners. And then I have another notes section in my phone that is everything I've ever come across that I find interesting and I want to look into it more, but maybe I don't have the time in that moment. So if I'm ever like, what should I cover today? I'll go through the list and I'll just like start looking into ones that I already have written down.
That's always nice. You got that backlog to go off of.
And it's kind of a little bit of a kind of a close-knit community. We have, I wouldn't say like a working friendship with the guy who runs the Strange Outdoors website. So we haven't recently, but a lot of time in the past, we've kind of collaborated with him. He's given us some of his research, or we'll do a case and then he'll do an article off our episode for his website. And it's the cases are endless. That's what I found.
Yeah.
So what's both yours, I'd say, favorite stories that you covered? Your favorite one and the one that freaks you out the most?
That might be one and the same.
Okay.
You can go first, Danielle.
Well, you know, that's so tough. It's very tough because obviously the beauty of, you know, creating the show is there's no one telling you what to research and what to cover. You get to choose. And because of that, we cover stories that we really enjoy or want to learn more about. So it is hard to choose. But I would say my favorite type, category, genre of stories to research personally are animal encounters. I absolutely love that just because we always put or attempt to put some sort of conservation twist to it. It's not like this big bad wolf type of approach that we take to any animal story. So I really enjoy the fact that we can interject some information that helps kind of destigmatize the fear, even if the story is brutal and scary. So going off of that, the story that I think stuck with me the most and I think pretty much all of our listeners that have been around up until that point, is Night of the Grizzlies, which Cassie covered. So I didn't have to research it. I got to listen to it.
It was traumatizing to research.
Yeah.
And listen to.
Yeah. So Night of the Grizzlies for sure was like my number one. I think it's fascinating. It's obviously a huge story for a reason. But yeah, animal encounter stories are definitely my favorite.
So Night of the Grizzlies, can you give like the elevator pitch of what that was about? And then do you know what episode it is? So everyone can go
Maybe
listen to
Cassie
it.
can look it up while
I can look it up. It's one of our I want to say it's episode 13. It's very early.
You're going to be underwater if you're listening to it. But
the content is good.
Yeah. So long story short, again, I didn't research it, so Cassie might have to fill in the blanks here. But long story short, in documented history for Glacier National Park, up until this point in the 1960s, there had never been a fatal grizzly mauling or incident. And then one night in the 1960s, 2 different women got attacked by 2 separate grizzlies in 2 separate areas of the park on the same night and were killed and consumed.
That's super rare for bears to do that.
It's super rare at face value, but Cassie went into the fact of there's a reason for it. And the reason was the national park system was actively feeding bears, and it was a tourist attraction. If you went to Glacier National Park up until that point, there would be stadium bleachers. The National Park Service would feed the bears. You can go see the bears. So they were basically habituated animals. Okay. And so there's a whole backstory of not only the tragedies for those 2 women and the people who are with them, but also how bear management has changed since then, and what the National Park Service has learned, and what we have learned as visitors to wild places, and how to be more responsible when we're in places with wild animals. And so anyway, it just was like all the best of all of the worlds that I love. Yeah. And she presented it so beautifully, and it obviously has just really stuck with a lot of people because it's horrifying. Yeah. I mean, the detail she goes into,
it's rough.
It's rough.
It's rough. I mean, it was a gruesome story. And I will say part of that too was the National Park Service. Not only were they encouraging the feeding of bears, but also they didn't have a lot of research on grizzlies in general. And they considered grizzlies to be as dangerous as a black bear or a deer. Mm-hmm. They didn't. And even now we're getting a lot of stuff recently where black bears are really dangerous. So there's always this new research that's happening. But at the time when Night of the Grizzlies happened, it changed the way the Park Service looked at it. And they said, like, hold on a second, maybe grizzlies are a lot more dangerous. Mm-hmm. And they looked at it as a whole. And now there's whole bear safety seminars that go on within Glacier National Park because of it. So
and across the National Park Service as a whole, because Glacier wasn't just the only park participating in those activities. And so it changed the way that not only people like us, visitors, go and recreate in wild places with animals, but also, the Park Service themselves and things like that. So.
Well, I really like the message you give on the conservation aspect of it too, because we always talk about how if you're hiking in bear country, you really need to follow the rules about, food storage, cooking, because the sad thing is, as soon as a bear attacks, a hiker, they're going to go out there and shoot that bear. I mean, so, and you can just prevent this by just following, simple rules.
Yeah. And it's not the bear's fault.
It's not the bear's fault.
If you're not managing your food properly. We always talk about we're in their house, that's their home, not our home. So you need to follow the rules, or these animals will get because the park rangers, I get why they do that, because once a bear gets the taste of human food, it's done. That's what they're going to pursue. And it's really important, especially for people that don't ever hike, to know it's really important to bring a bear cage and put your food in the tree and cook properly. And so that's great that you guys talk about that, because. And not just with bears, any wildlife, just leave them alone.
when you're hiking.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, don't put them in a bad situation and don't put yourself in a bad situation, and go in educated, which is so important in any wild space under any circumstance, whether it's with wildlife or the landscape that you're in. It's just such an important message to know where you are, know how to recreate safely where you're traveling to.
and leave it the way you found it so others can enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing too. Don't throw your trash around. So that's a great aspect of the message.
Did you find the number?
Oh, yes, I did. It's 17 and 18.
Ooh, you were close.
Because it was two-parter. Yeah.
It was a two-parter. Yeah.
That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
so yeah, episode 17 and 18, it'll be underwater, too bad. And you guys are gonna
sorry
love
about
it.
it.
You know what I've
Content
learned?
is very interesting.
What I've learned, I have friends that are in business that I've been in business with that are like brutally honest. And that's why they're friends of mine. And I've asked them about like our older episodes and said, yeah, you can tell it's not great quality, but if the story's good, it doesn't bug people as much.
Yeah.
So I think as podcasters, we look at the episode a lot harsher than some of the listeners do. So there's a reason you guys are big, and it's not because they were deterred when it wasn't as good.
I always think every episode's bad.
Yeah, yes, you do.
It never doesn't matter if it's
you
good.
think everything's bad.
No, it's not true.
In most of it.
Nah.
Most of the time, and Mike's like, should we not do that one? I'm like, no, we're doing it. We're doing it.
You're just critical. You're critical.
Yes.
Yeah, critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just means that you care a lot about what you're putting
you
out
put a
there,
lot of
which
time.
isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, you put a lot of time and effort in it, and you want it to be perfect. And we've given up on the perfect part.
Yeah.
Fair.
All right, Cassie, your turn.
Yeah, you're up.
I mean, for the most impactful one, I would agree with the Night of the Grizzlies. Another one that I think would come in a close second was also one that I covered, and it was the Jenny Lake Rangers in Grand Teton National Park. And I covered a story about a group of people who were all struck by lightning at the same time on the Grand while they were climbing in a lightning storm. And people lost their lives, and it was really tragic and horrible. But within that, it's really interesting to see the rescue teams that go out there. I mean, the Jenny Lake Rangers are considered one of the most elite rescue teams in the national park system. And these people are, I don't remember, I haven't researched this in a while, so don't quote me or anything that this is like exactly what happened. But this first group, it took them like, I think 9 hours or so just to get on the Grand, and their rescue team comes in and they're up there in 2 hours. So they're extremely fit in shape. They're great climbers. They're amazing at their job with rescuing, and going into that and learning really how much goes into being part of a rescue team was really interesting to me. And then the fact that the people who did survive this only survived because they were so skilled in what they do and got up there in time to help them. So I just thought that episode was extremely interesting, and it happens to be in one of my favorite national parks. So
Grand
that was
Tetons.
cool too. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, you haven't hiked there, have you?
I have hiked there.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Yeah, I have too. It's a really cool park.
Yeah, it is.
So we have a camera issue. Joe's dealing with that. I was looking through some of your episodes, and I want to just ask your thoughts on a couple episodes you did. And there's one in particular that Joe and I have batted around talking about. But it's just it's such a sad and terrifying story. And I think this might have been one of your subscriber only episodes, but it was on the Nutty Putty Cave.
Oh God.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Do you want to just fill the listeners in, just the elevator pitch? Because after I heard about that story, I spent like a month reading about it out of like just morbid curiosity and just trying to put myself not only in his shoes, but in like the rescuer's shoes that have to go in there and try to get this guy out.
I don't know the story, so this would be great for me.
You haven't heard about the Nutty Putty Cave?
I have not heard about the
man.
So
Strap in. Strap in.
So that is a story that I covered, and I will say it is one of my least favorite stories that I've ever covered.
Way to go, Mike.
Sorry.
And it's not because it's a bad story, because it's a horrific story, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned in it. But I personally am claustrophobic, and it is a cave story, a caving accident story. And it's also extremely It's extremely sad. So basically, this man went into the Nutty Putty Cave, which is now closed. It's in Utah. And he went in spelunking, cave diving, basically, with a friend. And he got lost in the tunnels, and he went one way thinking it was the way that he needed to go, and it wasn't, but he thought he was in the right section, so he thought he had to squeeze through this really small area before he got to this big opening, which was not the case. It actually, he was going downwards, which he didn't realize, but he got stuck upside down. And he was basically, his head was all the way down and his feet were all the way up. That's how upside down he was.
There's like a graphic, not graphics. What am I?
Infographic, I think.
Infographic, of it, so you can see like based in the cave system how he was stuck.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it gets worse.
It gets way worse. So he's stuck and his friend tries to get him out and he can't. So they call in a rescue crew, which gets there. And he is so stuck that they have a really hard time getting him out. And actually the way that he's stuck, the way that the tunnel goes, is that they would have to essentially break his legs to bend him in the way that they would need to get him out of this cave. So they were trying everything that they could to get him out. They were trying really hard. They had doctors and nurses down there. He had an IV to try and help with some of the symptoms, because when you're upside down for a really long time, all the blood rushes to your brain, and it's actually really detrimental to your organs and especially specifically your heart. So he was down there for a long time. I mean, he was on the phone with his family and his wife during this whole ordeal.
Right there on the
top.
top.
Right above. Yeah. And unfortunately, they tried for a really long time to get him out and they couldn't in time.
So he just slowly died in the worst way possible with everybody there.
Yeah, and very close to the surface, and with rescue teams like trying so hard, he went into cardiac arrest and he didn't make it out.
Yeah,
and
that's almost better that he did and just died right away instead of it just being drawn out over a long period of time.
And giving hope to his family and everything who are actively having conversations with him while this is all going on. It was just like every part of it is so sad and so horrific. And one of the worst parts about this story is that a similar story had happened here, like I think it was the year before or a couple of years prior to this incident, where someone got stuck in a bad way and they had to be rescued, but they did get him out in time.
Yeah.
And they should have shut the cave down then, but they didn't. And then this incident happened.
So it was the same cave.
Same cave system.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to do that stuff. I mean, we've gone. I don't know what did we do? The slot canyons, but like you're not squeezing through places.
No, I mean we could fit through them pretty with packs on.
I'm never gonna be where I have to squeeze through something. No way.
Yeah, it was. It was really rough. That was one of the first subscriber episodes.
That was early.
I wrote
the date down of it. You guys did it on. I'm old school. I wrote it all down.
We'd love to know.
Yeah,
you used a quill.
Yeah, I used a quill. April 22nd of 2021 was when you released it. So that's an oldie.
Yeah, 4 months into the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe and I've thought about doing like a Patreon episode on it for a long time, and it's not really kind of the topic we covered, and it's like horrific story, like you said.
Yeah, I didn't like hearing about it, so
I know I get kind of a little anxious hearing about it.
There's a movie, right? Isn't there a movie about it?
127 Hours was about
no,
not that movie.
I want to say there's a movie about
maybe like a documentary or something. I don't know.
I swear to
there's
God.
probably something, because that just sounds exactly like
I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah.
Wait, yes, The Last Descent is based on the 2009 rescue attempt of John Edward Jones in Nutty Putty Cave.
Wow.
Oh, actually, that kind of sounds from I probably watched it.
I think you're right.
I do not remember movies for like the life of me. Like some people can remember quotes and re-say an entire movie after they watch it. I brain dump it within 2 weeks. I've never seen that before in my life.
That's why I'm never going to watch that movie, because I'm the person who remembers every aspect of a movie, so that will just be stuck in my head.
I had a friend growing up that would ruin movies because he would you watch Dumb and Dumber and he would know every line and say it before they would say it on the movie.
Just to impress you?
Yeah. No, so that was really one of the episodes that stuck out to me. Another question I had is Joe and I love doing paranormal episodes. We don't do them very often because we found that they actually are the least popular. But okay. we like doing them, and I did notice that you kind of mix in every now and then like a paranormal episode. I was just on a little mini vacation, and I went to a town in Wisconsin called Rhinelander where they have a legend of this thing called a hodag. I bought a bobblehead for the studio.
Nice. Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So
we got these in Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin.
Yeah, Rhinelander. So I was just wondering if there's any cool urban legends that you guys have covered that you really find fascinating, or like we could do like a pop quiz, like do you believe in Bigfoot? Do you believe, or like is there anything?
The answer is yes.
Yes. Are there any like urban legends or anything like that you've had fun covering and think are real or think are cool but kind of a joke?
Well, I would say right off the bat, I mean, the easiest ones to pick at obviously are Bigfoot, and we do kind of lump in, it's hard to say like the alien category. Is that cryptid? Is that paranormal? What is that? Yeah. But we have done a couple alien based episodes just because I believe, and I think Cassie does too. And, but anyways, so, look at my wallpaper. I don't know if you can see my wallpaper.
She has aliens.
It's alien abductions.
Perfect.
At a campsite. Yeah.
Yes.
But anyways, as far as like urban legends, I don't think we've covered necessarily that. What we have done, and I say we, but Cassie has done the majority of them, is more so of native and indigenous legends that have taken form or shape over the years and have been just cemented into different areas and thus different national parks. And the first one that comes to mind right away is that we were just talking about today, actually, randomly, is the Wendigo up in Isle Royale. And you also covered Spearfinger, which is in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And
yes.
Yeah, just different native legends that kind of began as like, I kind of forget the Wendigo thing. You might have to refresh my memory, but Spearfinger was definitely like, a lot of those legends have to do with like, they were kind of tales that were shared as kind of like warnings to like children to like be good or like stick around and things like that. So those are really cool, and it's not necessarily whether or not we believe in those entities. It's more of like honoring the stories of the indigenous cultures, and we love sharing that. So.
Yeah. And have you done any episodes? I think I saw you did one episode on maybe the Bermuda Triangle. Do you do like location, like paranormal locations maybe, or?
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that one was, oh God, you're like really raking us like over the course. I'm like, God,
we do that. I remember you did the Bermuda Triangle, but it wasn't just the Bermuda Triangle. You also did one in Vermont.
I didn't do the Bermuda Triangle. I did the Bermuda Triangles of North America. So I did one in Alaska. It was Alaska, Vermont, and somewhere in California.
There's
maybe
one in Nevada.
Yeah, viral. Was it viral vortices or something? What they called? There's like certain areas where like gravity's different.
One of them in Nevada was where Steve Fawcett went down. I think he went down in one. Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong, but
well, like Cassie said, we brain dump a lot of this stuff, especially things from like 3 years ago. But no, we've definitely done that. I mean, and of course, it's hard to kind of toe the line between, because when I remember doing that particular episode in Vermont, that area, and particularly in Alaska, the first few things that you see when you're going to do research on stories is like, especially those are like the paranormal, like they were abducted by aliens or whatever the heck happened, but when you actually look at it, it's like that area in Alaska actually has like the highest rate of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And it's like, is it paranormal or is it, something else that we need to pay attention to? And it's fun, like as you guys can probably relate to, it's fun to do lighter hearted paranormal stuff and just kind of toss around like, is this real? Is it not real? Like, kind of take some of the heaviness off of your regularly scheduled
and
content.
you can have fun with it. I think that fun is the operative word, because you really don't, it's we run into this a lot. We don't have fun doing it. We like doing the show and doing it, but it's not like you're reveling in people being killed or going missing or like the pain it causes. We tell the stories, but when you do the paranormal ones, it is fun. You can talk about the hodag, this weird monster that apparently lives in Rhinelander, Wisconsin for some reason. And my kids all play hockey. So there's the hodag tournament. So you go to the ice ring, they have a giant hodag that shoots smoke out of it. And it's a huge tourist attraction. They have a giant statue in town. And it's like some guy's story from like 100 years ago.
Yeah. Like Cassie has done like the castle, the haunted castle or something.
Okay.
Oh,
Rod.
In England, the Exmoor castle over there, and just like historically based, a lot of stuff has happened there. But then there's these supposed entities that are still living there, and there's all these stories, and sometimes we even go to these places. I mean, we've been to quite a few haunted places, I would say now.
That's awesome.
Been to the Crescent Hotel in Arkansas was one, the Stanley Hotel in Estes. I went to the what was it called? The Dartmoor Castle in the UK. We did. I mean, I
take Cassie to a lot of places that are unofficially haunted, but are definitely haunted.
No, a lot of them are officially haunted. I was like, hey, Danielle, I like telling you stories, but I don't want to be haunted. And she's like, cool, I just booked us this hotel. And she'll show me a picture of it. And I'm like, this one time, I will never forget. We were in Arkansas and she was like, oh yeah, I booked this hotel. Like, it's a little older. And I'm like, okay, sure. And I'm following the GPS, I'm driving, and I get there and I'm like, and we pull up to it and there's a parking lot across the street, and I pull in the parking lot. So I have a full view of this hotel we're about to stay in. I'm like, is this it? She's like, yeah, this is it. The top windows were shattered. The outside, there were like old mattresses that were like leaned against the windows with the broken windows. The front of it is like so run down. There's a blinking light on the outside. It's just everything you would think a horror movie would be.
Yeah.
It was. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm going inside this building. And we get inside and it's exactly the same inside. We walk
just dilapidated?
Yes, we walk to our room. It's upstairs. We walk up the set of stairs and it's this really dark hallway with like a couple flickering lights. It's the middle of the day, but it's completely dark in there. There's these old pictures on the wall, like it looks like a really old hotel. And I'm like, all right, this is definitely where I get haunted for sure.
So has it happened yet? She's brought you to all these places. Have you been haunted?
She's had a couple feelings.
Okay.
She's had a couple feelings of things.
Yeah.
Nothing
I haven't been
like
touched or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just the
I don't
presence.
know. I like things with character. Okay. Sue me.
No, you know what? I like that too, because what I've learned over the years of doing trips, whenever your trip goes perfect and you do all this, it's not as memorable. It's when you have issues or you go to places like that. Look you're laughing about it. It made the trip.
About it now.
Yeah, exactly. But you
survived.
Yeah. So all you got to think about is when you're in that situation, be like, this is gonna be a great story later if we make it out alive.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I will say that you have definitely made me appreciate older historic hotels a lot more, because they're way cooler than going to like a Days Inn or something like that, where they're all just generic. They're a lot more interesting. It's just my one rule is if I get haunted, I'm not allowed to be touched. Like I'll literally go in our hotel rooms. I'm like, all right, I know it's haunted in here. I can tell. So don't touch me.
You make like a salt circle and sleep in it on the floor.
Yeah.
And we always we never get separate bedrooms. And even the one time we had a room that had 2 beds.
Or two rooms
in the same suite.
Sure.
They were connected, whatever. Yeah, no, we didn't use the second room.
This was so haunted. It was like the most haunted hotel in America or something. And we look and Danielle's like, I'm going to sleep in here. And we're like, yeah, me too. I'm not going in there by myself.
So I'm going to call you for hotel recommendations next time I go somewhere.
Please
I want to stay in those places. That sounds amazing. That's actually a great segue. So you guys do listener trips, which is something I want to get into, although you have kids now.
Yeah.
Mine are all growing up, so I can do it. So tell us about your listener trips.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So we started last year, and we started off with one thinking that, this would be fun to do if anyone is interested or would be interested. And it was wildly successful. Our first trip we launched was an Alaska trip. And we don't bring anyone into dilapidated, haunted hotels on purpose. So that's not part of the itinerary. But yeah, so we've done, last year we did 6 or 7. We take listeners. The group sizes vary depending on what we're doing, whether they're all camping or an outdoor based, which we've done in Alaska and Canada. Then we have kind of half and half ones. We went to Patagonia, which was very outdoor based, but we stayed in hotels instead of tents. And then there's been some that are all cultural based, which primarily was Egypt, where we just did a lot of sightseeing and museums and things like that. But we try and pick itineraries that we enjoy, that is kind of just a translation of our show content into real life experiences. Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome.
It sounds really cool.
Yeah. So, how many people do you get? Was it hard to fill, or do you guys have enough listeners that you're able to fill these pretty quick?
Well, the first time we did this, we were doing an Alaska trip and we went all out. We filmed videos. We're we don't know who's going to respond to this. Who are people going to be interested? We put all these posts all over social media, please come with us. It'll be so fun. It sold out within 3 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. That's awesome.
And all of our trips have done the same thing since.
That's fantastic. So, have you had any interesting interactions with fans on your trips?
No, I mean, interesting as in lovely people and a lot of really cool stories and backgrounds. Yes. But every person who has ever come on our trips have been really wonderful. Yeah. And one thing about our community that's been so great is that it's a lot of like-minded people who just want to be in the outdoors, who want to adventure together, who want to have real life experiences. And that's definitely translated when we all get together. I mean, most of our trips, people leave with lifetime friends. We see them go on trips with each other after ours has long ended. There's a couple groups in particular where I see them on Instagram all the time, meeting up across the country together, which is amazing. So we haven't had any bad experiences in terms of people who come on the trips.
Yeah, that's great. I'm asking questions because I want to do this. So I'm like,
a
lot of this is for me, actually.
It's
great.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea for when we used to do our big trip every year. There's a lot of planning that goes into it, a lot of researching where to hike and what to do and all that, checking the weather and everything.
Yeah, what dilapidated hotel we're going to stay
at.
Right.
And, for a lot of people who may want to do this that have never done it before and are inexperienced, having this kind of planned out for you, and then obviously you two are very experienced hikers and have done it all over the world. Having you two as kind of the guides on there probably eases their minds that, okay, I can do this. I'm not by myself planning it all and figuring all this stuff out. So that's a really cool aspect of it that I can see why it would be so popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a lot of work. It's hard planning one of these trips. I mean, if you want to do it and not, do it right. And
I think you guys put it perfectly. You said when it finally gets from the group chat to real life.
Yeah.
It's kind of surreal because you talk about it for months and months and months, and then you actually do it, and you're like, "Whoa, what's happening?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
A lot of our trips we put out a year in advance, and we're chatting on group chats and things like that over the year and talking about packing lists and how excited we are. And then we all land wherever we are. And it's like, hey, it's finally come together. We're all here now.
And it's just it's an excellent opportunity for people who, it's not quite solo travel, of course, because you're with a group, but a lot of these people are coming solo. So it's kind of like it's like a halfway house between doing a full solo trip on your own. And quite frankly, for especially young women, that's really daunting, especially if you're going to a different country, somewhere you don't speak the language, somewhere you're not familiar with, and you get to do that and experience that in a way that maybe you never would have, because you know how hard it is to get a group of people that to go somewhere, and sometimes if you wait around for friends or family, it may never happen. So we're really fortunate to be able to provide the space for people to move forward with something like that maybe they wouldn't have done before, and now have the confidence to either do themselves in the future, or like Cassie said, they've made a group of friends with that they now can go do those things with, and they don't have to rely on, their people at home. So it's a really cool way to bring people together.
That's awesome that you're the catalyst for that too. Like, that's really neat that your idea that started as you guys just enjoy hiking, you started a show, now you do these trips, you've brought people together now that they're lifelong traveling friends, all because you guys wanted to start a podcast. That's awesome. That's really
it's
cool.
kind of a weird butterfly effect. Thing to think about.
Just spreading joy in the world. That's great. Yeah.
I have a question just kind of on the same topic, but kind of more broadly to just your own hiking trips you've done. Joe and I have talked many times on our show about the different things that have happened to us while hiking. From my first trip in Canyonlands, run out of water, to Glacier, where we were in a campground that was attacked by bears.
We were under bear danger.
Yeah, so
at Glacier.
We met a guy in Utah that literally walked out of the bushes and started talking to us, and I think he was crazy. He told us that he wrote a bunch of songs for Disney and they stole them from him, and we were all standing there with kind of our hands on our knives, ready to defend ourselves, because he was that strange.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere.
Yeah, he just appeared
with no gear.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So my question is, what are some things that have happened to you on your, throughout the years that, a close call or a strange interaction with sometimes on hiking trips, I'm more worried about maybe the people I might run into versus the animals. Sometimes people can be, more threatening sometimes, but so I don't know. Has anything happened to you on a hike where it was you look back in hindsight, I'm like, wow, that was a little closer than, I'd like it to be, or something like that?
I can't off. Am I echoing right now?
Not on our end.
I don't know.
Oh, from me, I'm echoing a little bit.
It sounds good on our end.
Yeah.
Okay. I can hear myself talking as I'm speaking. It's weird. Sorry. For me, as far as people encounters, I've had some strange things, but nothing that overtly I felt like I was in danger. I did have an instance with a grizzly bear that was very close to me when I was in the Grand Tetons. When I was camping one night, I was laying in a tent with one of my friends, and we were in a campground there, and we were surrounded by people who had RVs, and we were the only people in tents. And I don't know if people were kind of careless because they had the safety of their RVs or what it was, but we both woke up in the middle of the night and we just heard loud grunting next to our tent and like heavy snorting. And I remember I like slowly turned over to my friend and we both just stared at each other and didn't breathe. We were just like, oh, fuck. We both just woke up and there's a bear outside. And at the time we didn't know, like, is it a grizzly bear? Is it a black bear? We know it's a bear. We know it's very close to our tent. And so we just waited what felt like a very long time. And then I finally heard it off in the distance and I unzipped my little zipper and right underneath like the spotlight that was on the road to get out was a grizzly bear.
Jeez.
Yeah, grizzlies are so... I had a grizzly encounter in the Tetons as well. We were on a trail and we came around a corner and he was probably like 50 feet off the trail and he was just standing there eating berries and he saw us and just stopped and was staring at us. I mean,
And you got to look at the ground. You don't make eye contact.
No, yeah, and I was just kind of like...
Do not challenge
I was
it.
just thinking like, all right, walk slowly. Like, you're not at a zoo. There's no fence. Like, they can cover 50 feet really fast.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little unnerving, but
Yeah.
we saw a ranger farther down the trail, and they were like, he's in there eating berries. He's not going to bother you guys. They're happy. Like, he's got plenty of food, but it's still... And, I mean, your situation, you're in your tent, and he's sniffing around, like, that's terrifying.
Yeah. You start thinking about, do we have anything in my pocket?
Oh, we knew we didn't because all we had to eat that night was popcorn.
Yeah.
And I had gone around the fire and picked up every single thing. And I mean, there was like maybe like 2 popcorns on the ground that had fallen and everything was locked away. There was nothing near us. And we knew that there was nothing, but at the same time, we're like, is there something left over from the RV? There was an RV like 20 feet from us.
Yeah.
Like, is there something over there? And luckily, I don't think there was anything. And it was just kind of browsing through because it left. But that was the closest encounter to a grizzly bear I've ever had.
That's close.
Yeah. Closer than I would like to be, for sure.
All right, Danielle, what about you?
For me, thankfully, I have not. I've had a couple of, like, I would say it wasn't as scary as Cassie's encounter, but with a big predator on the trail. Wait, were you with Aaron that trip?
Yeah.
Okay, so my story also involves that same girl,
With my friend Aaron.
So it's her. She's the problem.
So she was on one of our group trips. She came with us to Patagonia, and it was just her and I on the trail at the very end of like one of the longest treks we did that whole trip. It was a very long day hike, and it was on our way back. We kind of like broke up into little groups on the way back. So it's just her and I just casually looked next to me to talk to her mid conversation, and not even 10 feet away from her was a puma.
Wow.
So I have it on
What
video.
What do you do?
Well, we assessed. I immediately said, I grabbed her. She was mid-sentence because that's why I looked at her to listen to her. And I immediately was like, I'm sorry for swearing, but I was like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit.
That's the appropriate response.
Yeah.
I was like, and I grabbed her and stopped her from walking. And I think we would have had a different reaction if, the animal was behaving differently, but it was very clearly in the middle of hunting something. Its back was to us. You could see its ears flicking back to us. It knew that we were right there. It was very clear. It was right next to us, but it looked like it was hunting like maybe like rabbits or something, because it was in this little bit of a clearing. And it was just kind of doing its own thing. And we watched it for maybe 25, 30 seconds. And then it just kind of went off and did its own thing. So it wasn't like a scary encounter, but it was definitely startling.
Yeah.
That sounds scary to me. I'd probably be scared.
But I will say, like, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the scariest encounters with people I have ever had personally have not been on the trail. They've been in normal day-to-day life, where I've had many times where it was very concerning, without getting into detail. But yeah, just like in just regular day-to-day life, not something scary in the woods or on the trail or anything like that, and I know bad things can happen everywhere. Weird encounters can happen anywhere. But thankfully for me, that has not happened.
So actually, hold on. This leads into like the question that's I'm neurodivergent, so I love TikTok. It's like crack. The bear or the man in the woods question. Have you guys thought about this?
A bear. 100%.
The bear. Okay.
Yeah.
Instantly, Mike.
I'm not familiar with this.
You've like little kids. If your daughter had to be in the woods, would you rather have her be with a bear or a man?
A bear.
There it is.
It's funny when it's just people who know about bears and people who know about people. It's such a contentious topic.
Yeah.
And both sides get angry at everybody for answering what they answer.
The vast majority of people we've encountered hiking have been great, but we've come across some, odd ducks along the way.
Of course.
yeah.
I mean, wherever there's people, you're going to you run the risk of running into someone who doesn't have the greatest intentions, whether that be in the city or in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of a sad reality, and bad things happen everywhere. And we've covered a fair amount of, true crime based stories. Of course, it does happen, but personally, thankfully.
I mean, real quick, I talking about people hiking, years ago, a group of us did a big hiking trip in Hawaii, and we hiked into the Kala'au Valley on Kauai. And down in that valley, there's these, I guess you call them homeless people, but they live in the woods. And there's this trail, it's not on a map, you got to ask around to find it, called the Hippie Highway. And so we're like, oh, this sounds really interesting. Let's go and try and find it. And we eventually find it, and we start hiking into the jungle. And there's all these people just living out there naked. They just live in the woods naked. They have like a library and a farm and like a whole community, but they're all just naked. And
it's a nudist colony?
No, not a nudist colony. They're just living on the land, and they just don't want to wear clothes. And
that sounds like a nudist colony.
They were eating it.
Yeah.
You're describing a nudist colony.
I guess. And
no, it's not that at all. They're naked.
They were all drinking this mushroom soup, so they were all like tripping out. And but yeah,
that sounds amazing to me, Mike. I want to go live there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Where was this again?
This was
in Hawaii.
It's on the north side of Kauai. It's in the Kala'au Valley. And
so you're saying I can go live off the land naked in Hawaii?
You can. The state comes in there every couple years and clears everything out, and then the people kind of just move right back in.
All right, sign me up. I'm in. Yeah, I'm going.
So there you go. Those people are very friendly. So I'll say that.
They sound it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, Joe, you were looking like you were going to pull.
Yes, I was gonna play a couple, just 3 of the voicemails, because I know we don't want to go too much longer.
Do you have the guy that talks about the Ford?
I do. Did we play you guys that one? That one's not about their show.
I know, but we'll play it at the end. It's really funny.
So there's 3 people. I sent you the image of the one girl who said she was crying, screaming, and throwing up. That we were doing the collaboration, but there's a couple of them. They're really nice, and I wanted to play them because they say really nice stuff about you guys too. So I'm going to play the first. I have 2 messages from the same girl, and then a third one. So here is the first.
Hello, locations unknown. My name is Jessica Tyson.
Oh, you can't really hear it.
I just wanted to.
Oh, you can't hear it at all?
No.
At all? Oh, no.
I can hear it like very, very faintly, but I can't totally understand what she's saying.
Oh, that's terrible. All right, we'll do that. We'll not do that then, and I'll just send it to you.
Okay, that would be lovely. We'd like to hear it. Yeah.
So I'll send it to you. I think everyone that will listen to our show has played already, and I can share it on socials too. So I'll do that. So we'll skip that thing then. That's okay.
Cool.
Let me see if I had any other questions. my notepad here. You did have some other interesting episodes that I won't go into. You covered one on the bodies of Mount Everest, which has always fascinated me. That was another early one from 2021. I always just find it fascinating that the climbers kind of use the bodies as like markers, like map markers almost, to kind of know where they are on their way to the summit. So that was an interesting episode. I don't know. Any other questions?
I would say, what's your dream trip? You've seemed to have gone on a ton of them. You guys were just in Peru at Machu Picchu. Where's the place you haven't gone yet? That's big bucket list item.
Oh boy, that's a big one. I know Cassie's answer right away because we talked about it today, like 3 hours ago.
Okay, she's right. I'm like, what are you gonna say? But she's right. One of my top places that I really want to go that I haven't been yet is Norway.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
So I would love to
Why
go
Norway?
there. I just think that it's so, one, I love Nordic countries, but also just I've never really seen fjords like those in Norway before. And the landscape and the hiking opportunities that are there are just, they look unreal.
I've seen videos. It looks fake. It looks like AI, like someone made it up.
I'm like, how is this real? How does this exist in real life? And I've always heard that Norwegian people are really lovely, and I'd love to like meet people there and just explore and camp and hike and do all the fun stuff out there. So one day I'll get there.
Well, you're in the right business to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
So that's awesome.
Truly.
All right,
Yeah.
Danielle.
So I guess I have a little bit of a different answer or approach to the answer. Instead of a like specific location, there are kind of like events that I would like to witness. And the two that come to mind are vastly different. But the first one is the Great Migration in Africa. I would love to see that. I think it's just such one of the like wonders of the world, truly.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to see that. So that's one thing. And then on the other end of the
I
spectrum,
think I know your answer.
do you?
I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever told. Actually, I've
Ben.
definitely told you, I think. Either way, I would like, okay, after I tell if it's different, I need to know what yours is for me.
Okay.
But I would love to see Dia de los Muertos in Mexico. I would love to see that. I'm a huge, it's not even like the morbid curiosity thing. I really am fascinated with death rituals and how people honor the dead throughout the world. And that is one of the events that I would love to see in person.
I think I've seen videos of that. Is that where they have like the big skulls and they dress up and okay, I've seen videos of it. I don't know what it's all about. So it's all just honoring the dead and death rituals.
Yeah. So this is funny because Cassie actually did an episode on this. But very early on as well. But yeah, essentially, obviously, throughout the world, people view death in a lot of differing ways that are a complete departure from what we do here in the United States and how we handle and view and how we contemplate death. It's just so extremely different, and I find it fascinating. And anyways, so yeah, Dia de los Muertos is one of those celebrations that essentially, during a time of the year, isn't it November 1st through the 3rd or something? Each day is like for a different, for ancestors or children or pets or, deceased loved ones in different ways of, honoring them. People put out ofrendas where you put out pictures and things that those people loved in life and marigold flowers, and you talk to them and celebrate them and bring them into their spirits into your home. And there's big celebrations like, citywide and not just in people's homes individually, but throughout the country. And I just think it's so beautiful. And I wish that we did something like that in America to honor our loved ones instead of it being so private and kind of like not a norm or socially acceptable thing. So I just would love to see that, just like a country celebrate and honor the dead in the way that we just do not here. So yeah,
no,
that's beautiful. That sounds amazing. Now I want to go see it. You did a great job of explaining it. I'm in.
Yeah, no, it sounds cool. And my daughter loves the Disney movie Coco. Which
yes.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Obsessed with it.
The fun thing about Coco too is I actually watched it after I researched the episode, and I think it wasn't for the research of the episode or anything. It was just because I knew that it was about it. And they actually, everything that they reference within that movie is accurate to Dia de los Muertos traditions. Okay. And everything they're really they're really thoughtful about everything that they do, and everything that is happening and everything that you see in Dia de los Muertos is intentional. And there's a purpose behind every part of it for their loved ones who have passed, which is also why it is so interesting. So, and a lot of times with that tradition, people who aren't familiar with it think, oh, it's the Mexican Halloween. And that cannot be further from the truth, because the outfits and the colors and everything that you see, it's not a costume for people. It's a representation of certain beliefs and spiritual beliefs. And it's just, it's a really cool and interesting ritual.
No, it looks really cool. And I would love to see that someday as well. Just it'd be cool to like travel to each day, spend a day in a different city.
100%. Yeah. Cause it's a nationwide celebration. And if you look up, like obviously there's a bunch of travel blogs and stuff out there, as there are for everywhere in the world. And it's kind of like, so you want to witness Dia de los Muertos, what city should I go to? And it's like, if you want this type of experience, go to this city, or this city is more about the parade, and this city is more about, in the cemeteries. And it's really cool. So I have some research to do for sure. But yeah, so cause I've been to
a listener trip. Before, let's do a joint listener trip. Just get a huge group. We'll all go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that sounds amazing.
It will have nothing to do with the outdoors.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. It's about living life and experiences.
There you go.
That's right.
No, that's great.
Well, I guess to wrap it up, do you want to tell
us how to get to your show?
Any listeners of our show that haven't heard of you yet, which
how to get to your show, what to buy, where to give you money, all that stuff, where to follow you.
Well, we are on every podcasting platform you can think of. So if you're on Spotify, Apple, you can find us there, National Park After Dark. We're on Instagram, National Park After Dark. We are trying to get into TikTok, but we're not there yet. But we have a page. If you want to hang out with us there, we'll post in about 6 months.
We might get one post in before it's banned.
Yeah, there
Who
you go.
knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
We have a website, npadpodcast.com. We have there you can we're working on an episode directory, so hopefully that comes out in the future, but there you can find links to our trips that we're doing. I don't know by the time this comes out if we've announced our 2025 trips or not. So I guess I won't say anything, but but they
have to keep going to your website and your show to see. Keep checking every day.
Keep checking. We do have one already that is already booked and out there. So but we are thinking of adding more. And then we have a submission form for Trail Tales where we have people write in their experiences in the outdoors, and we do episodes every other week covering that. So there's a submission form there. We have a Patreon as well, and we also have Apple subscriptions. So if you want to be a subscriber, those are the two options. And as far as giving us money other ways, we are trying to get merch going. It's been something people have been really, really wanting from us, and we are working on it.
It's hard. We've been talking about it for years, like T-shirts and
we have pink hats. That's all we got. We got these. This is the most of our merch. Hats.
And gray ones.
And gray ones, yes.
Nice. Yeah, it is merch is, you don't know until you know. And when you know, you get it. And it's difficult to navigate. We just want to do it right. So we're working on it.
Good. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you all of the fans of NPAD who came over and discovered us, and vice versa. If you haven't heard of them, please go listen to the show. It's fantastic. All we hear about, and I'll post the voicemails online because it's people that listen to both shows and like, you guys are all great, and if you don't know about this, you need to listen to them. But no, we really appreciate you guys coming on. And then we always end with lastly, when enjoying beauty in nature, whether backpacking, camping, or simply taking a walk, always remember to leave no trace. Thanks, and we will see you all next time.